All right, let's talk New York Football Giants. There's plenty to talk about with these New York Football Giants. We had the Kadarius Toney trade. We had the NFL trade deadline. We had the Seahawks loss. We got the bye week coming up. So there's a bunch that we can discuss. We'll kick it off with the Kadarius Toney trade. This happened basically right after I was done recording the last podcast, last episode. And a bit of a shocker, but not really. I think surprising, but not somehow. I don't know how that works, but you know, the vibes were not great with Kadarius Toney. You know, dating back to the training camp when he lit it up pretty much right off the bat, and then went MIA, and then there was all this talk about how the new regime is not too fond, not too crazy about his work ethic and his ability to retain the playbook was, I guess, speculation from a lot of people. You know, so sophisticated that he can't pick it up. Yet every time this guy's on the field and they give him the ball, he makes plays. So somewhat bittersweet. We sent him to the Chiefs, which the Chiefs now have a litany of playmakers on their roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And they felt like the more the merrier. And if they're going to compete with the likes of the Buffalo Bills as the AFC contender, as the top AFC team, and to be in contention for the Super Bowl, they felt like Kadarius Toney was a guy that they could scoop up on the relatively cheap and just design all kinds of cool, kooky gadget plays, because that's what the Chiefs do, right? That's what Andy Reid and who's his OC, former running back, can't remember. That's what they do, right? They just cook up that's where Kafka came from as the OC. And so it's a matter of like, hey, he's your problem now. Do with him what you will. Maybe he'll come up big for you. A lot of people wondering about his injury situation, because it seems like he hurt his hamstring in training camp, missed some games, and then he tweaked some other hamstring in another game, and he just couldn't stay healthy. And then from what he's been putting out on social media, it's like, I guess he's not hurt. He's not injured. So I've never seen a player like him in a Giants uniform. I know that people will probably say Odell Beckham Jr. was a different kind of playing style with Odell Beckham Jr. I don't know that he had the level of stop-start, like the ability to stop on a dime, right angle, like cut, make people miss. OBJ was great at that. Not to Kadarius Toney's level. I mean, the things that he was putting on tape were absurd. So it's like one of those, what could have been, you know, we say that about guys like David Wilson, running back that the Giants drafted in 2012, who seemed to be like an all around just weapon, running the ball, catching the ball in the backfield, returning punts and kicks, you know, was on full display in that blowout of the Saints at home in 2012. And then injuries took him down. You know, I mean, I guess David Meggett is not that far off of a comp. You know, looking at Big Blue VCR puts up clips, highlights of David Meggett from time to time, and I watch him and I'm like, oh, damn. I mean, he doesn't do the stop-start that Kadarius Toney does, but his just slipperiness and his elusiveness. I don't know that the Giants really have had a lot of playmakers like that. I mean, you know, Saquon. He's a once in a lifetime generational running back, but in terms of making a play, like touching the ball and knowing that something freaking crazy is about to happen every time he touches the ball. That was Kadarius Toney. I mean, just a jolt to the system. Electric. I mean, I know that term's thrown around and overused a lot, but just freaking electric, dude. It was just great to see him get his hands on the ball because he knew something good or crazy was going to happen. But you know, for whatever reason, he rubbed two different regimes the wrong way. So if it were the same regime, you'd be like, well, maybe it's just not a fit. I mean, we've talked about that with Julian Love and O'Shane Ximines and a lot of these guys that were kind of lost in the mix or forgotten with previous coaching staffs. And then they get this coaching staff, who seems to get the most out of their talent, and they excel. But yet Toney, for whatever reason, just could not find his way to the playing field. It's just like, so good. I don't want to say good riddance, good luck, you know. I'm sure he'll go off with the Chiefs and make all kinds of highlight plays and make us regret that move. But we do get a 3rd round pick and a 6th round pick, both in next year's draft. Next year's draft, we now have 11 freaking selections. Once we get the 2 additional compensatory picks, one for Evan Ingram in the 5th, and then one for Keon Crossan in the 7th. We now have 2 third-round picks, 2 fifth-round picks, and 3 seventh-round picks. So Kadarius Toney is one of the trades that happened in October, late October. We saw the Eagles pick up Robert Quinn from the Bears. We saw the Cowboys pick up former Giant Jonathan Hankins, defensive tackle from the Raiders. The Jets made a move after Breece Hall went down, picking up James Robinson from the Jags. The Niners acquire Christian McCaffrey from the Panthers. And you could see right off the bat making a huge difference in week 2. Week 1, it was against the Chiefs, and he was used kind of here and there as he's trying to, take in and absorb and digest the playbook. And then week 2 of him being on the team, and it's like he throws a touchdown, he runs for a touchdown, he catches a touchdown. Hasn't been done since LaDainian Tomlinson. So it seems like the Niners have their finger on the pulse of what works with Christian McCaffrey. And Robbie Anderson, disgruntled receiver Robbie Anderson, gets dealt from the Panthers to the Cardinals, and the Falcons deal Deion Jones to the Browns. That was earlier on in October. So you can see the kind of teams that are making moves, right? It's the contenders: Eagles, Chiefs, Cowboys, Jets, Niners, Cardinals. Even the Browns feel like they still have a shot. And that's important to note because, as Joe Schoen, Giants GM, pointed out, there aren't a lot of sellers. There aren't a lot of sellers in the market. A lot of people, a lot of teams halfway through the season still think they have a shot. And, just look at the NFC South and the NFC West. Those 2 divisions are up for grabs. The Seahawks put on display why they are probably the favorite to win the West, but the Niners, now that they got McCaffrey fully integrated and blended in to that scheme, they could make a run. I think the Rams are pretty much done. And I think the Cardinals are like, I don't know what the hell the Cardinals are or what they're doing. They're just kind of all over the place. I don't take them too seriously. Obviously, I think they probably have the potential on paper to make a push, but I just don't see it actually coming to fruition. In the NFC South, it's like the Bucks are struggling big time, can't run the ball, losing games, losing to the Panthers, and so now the Falcons feel like they've got a shot. So they're wheeling and dealing. The Panthers are pretty much out of it, and so they are a seller. The Detroit Lions, they are a seller. Pretty much everyone else feels like they have a shot, and rightfully so. The Commanders are in last place in the East, but they're 4-4. So they could who's to say that they can't be the 7th seed as a wild card? I wouldn't put it past the NFC East to have all 4 teams go to the freaking playoffs. Just have the Eagles get the bye, Cowboys get the 5, we get the 6, and the Commanders get the 7. That's not out of the realm of possibility, especially with Taylor Haneke doing his thing, being all magical and shit. So leading into the NFL trade deadline, which was on Tuesday, November 1st at 4 p.m., there were all kinds of rumors swirling about who we could go after. Primarily, it was all wide receiver talk, which I thought was kind of interesting that we weren't in any discussion about a tight end or maybe an offensive lineman, maybe even an inside linebacker, knowing that our linebacker and crew is so on the interior is lacking, I would say. Could do better. So Jerry Jeudy and KG Hamler from the Broncos, they were being tossed around a whole bunch because their rookie contracts are expiring in 2024. Brandon Cooks was another guy that we could have gotten the cheap this year, but would have had to pay out the ace next year, something like $24 million, which he'll give you 900 to 1,000 receiving yards and a bunch of touchdowns, which for a wide receiver starved team like we are, that sounds like freaking an oasis, nirvana, heaven on earth. So, but understandably, I don't think with the cap issues that we have and the fact that we have Kenny Golladay still on the freaking roster, that severely hamstrings us. In terms of bringing in a wide receiver 1. DJ Moore was tossed around a lot. Chase Claypool, Denzel Mims, or Elijah Moore. And that was more a product of them, Mims and Moore, being frustrated in the offense that they're in, disappointed. Even though the team's winning, they're not producing. And so those are the situations you're looking for if you're a GM and you're trying to wheel and deal and swap and make trades. Is teams that either are out of the playoff contention that are looking to acquire draft picks to rebuild, of which there's Panthers and Lions, really. And then you have the teams where they might be middling or winning, but they've got these personalities that are just not jiving with the rest of the roster for whatever reason, or the scheme. And those are where your other opportunities are. So like the Texans are pretty much out of it, right? So they would be looking to deal. The Broncos are pretty much out of it. I mean, they just look awful. So, that's why people thought Judy and Hamler might be gone. And Claypool with the Steelers, like the Steelers aren't great this year. And I don't know that they really have a shot in the AFC North. So they were looking to deal Claypool. So, and I think a lot, the sentiment among Giants fans was we want something to happen, but we're not expecting something to happen. And I think most fans, it was 50-50. I don't know if the split was that exact and precise, but I would think that a lot of fans would not be disappointed if we didn't make any moves. They understand, they want to trust the process, and they believe in Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. And so whatever decision they make, they're cool with. And then there were fans that were like, can you just look at like this start is historical in a lot of respects. We don't get off to many hot starts. If you remember one of my previous videos, we did a history of hot starts. Doesn't come along too often that you get 6-1 or 6-2. Doesn't come along very often. And even though we're technically, I guess we're supposed to be in this rebuild, we're in a tremendous position to make the playoffs and make a run. Just make the playoffs. I mean, if the previous two Giants Super Bowl runs and even this year's MLB postseason prove anything, it's that just get into the postseason and then let's see what happens. Because good teams go down, mediocre teams surprise people and go on a run. They catch a wave of momentum. So hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine that we would be at 6-1 right now and Kenny Galladay has 2 catches. Hard to imagine that we're at 6-1, 6-2 now and Kadarius Toney missed all kinds of games and is not playing. Sterling Shepard injured, not playing. Wan'Dale Robinson missed a bunch of games. Like it unfathomable that we would be at 6-1, 6-2. That being said, I think a lot of Giants fans are like, I don't think that's sustainable. I think teams are going to catch up with that and be like, let's just do what the Seahawks did. And that's the secret to success against the New York Football Giants. And so there was a sect of Giants fans that wanted a wide receiver 1. I was not wanting that or expecting that. I just wanted someone who is somewhat better than David Sills, Marcus Johnson, Richie James. There you go. I have confidence in Darius Slayton and I have confidence in Wan'Dale Robinson, even though they have a tendency to just straight up ghost us during some games. I don't know if that's a result of what the defenses are showing or sending our way, or if it's just not in the cards, not in the game plan for that contest. But to me, it's like, all right, I feel okay to good about Slayton and Robinson. They will not take over games. They will make a big play or two during a game, but I don't know that I have the kind of reliability or trustworthiness in them to be that consistent producer. So I feel like you need, especially with Bellinger going down, I felt like that player could be in the form of a receiver or a tight end. So why not go after a tight end or a receiver? And if you get both, great. Because we're in desperate need. If this Seahawks game showed anything, it was that we're in desperate need of personnel on the offensive side of the ball. And maybe this is the whole strategy is, well, we're going to get Galladay back eventually healthy. So that will be as if we picked up someone, a wide receiver 1, even when he has been healthy, he's just not a presence at all. Not on the radar. And then a tight end. I think the tight end might have been the way to go, seeing that Bellinger is out for 6 weeks with the broken eye socket. I guess it could have been worse. He's not going to miss the entire season, and maybe we'll get him back for the playoff push, which would be sweet. But seeing the trades that did happen, I don't see why we couldn't have made a move, especially with 11 picks, dude. Freaking 11 picks. And I get, like, if we rolled up to this trade deadline and we had like 6 picks, gotcha. We don't have any draft capital. We need every single pick. Gotcha. We're not making any moves. 11 picks, dude. We can't get rid of like 2 of those, 3 of those, 4 of those, dude. We can't get rid of those or future picks. Let's get a little creative here. And I don't think I was asking for like a wide receiver 1 or even a wide receiver 2, dude. I'll take a wide receiver 3 at this point because we don't have a wide receiver. We're like, let's have 4 wide receiver 3s on this team. That's what we need because Darius Slayton almost didn't make the team. Richie James is not he's a punt returner, kick returner who sometimes can be in a 4 wide set. Marcus Johnson is like David Sills is a practice. Like what? That was what was so frustrating about this trade deadline is like the asking price is too high. The asking price is too high. The asking price is too high. It's like, brother, all eyes are on you in this 2023 draft, because if you fuck up this 23 NFL draft, people are going to point back to this trade deadline and be like, well, we had the opportunity. We had all these drafts capital that we could have given up, parted with. You're telling me that we're going to lose, that every single one of those 11 players is going to make an impact next season? Probably not. But my guess is the approach is a buckshot shotgun approach where it's like, well, if we make 11 picks that we feel strongly about and half of them pan out, that's a good draft. 5 or 6 guys that are people that you can extend and be on a rookie contract, which I guess never happens anymore, then we're all gravy. But you're telling me that we can't make an impact with like 8 picks? I don't know. You don't want to mortgage your future, but like you have an opportunity right there in front of you. Who's to say what the hell is going to happen in 2023? And I understand that the roster is going to look a lot different in 2023. We've had that pounded into our heads repeatedly. In this year's draft class, there were how many picks? I guess we did have like 11 picks or something like that. 3 of them or 4 of them went down with like season-ending injuries. And then we've had, I don't know. I just would have liked to see something. Just something that says, hey, we understand this is an issue. We hear the fans. And that was also part of this rhetoric was this, Gettleman would have given up draft picks for a short-term rental that wouldn't have panned out. And the reason we're in this position is because David Gettleman would make a trade and sacrifice our future to win in the present. I have more trust and faith in Joe Schoen to not do that. Like I was not crazy about the Leonard Williams trade. People are saying that he's on a similar level, like a poor man's Aaron Donald. Okay. At the time, our defensive line was not an issue. I don't think. I thought we had a decent defensive line, and I thought that we could have ran with what we had, and it wouldn't have cost us nearly as much for Leonard, to as it would to keep Leonard Williams. So that trade was a little bit like, what are we doing? Defensive line is not a position of need. He's going to cost a lot of money. And if we don't re-sign him, it's going to be a horrible trade. And we're also losing. So it's like, even though that people thought that we were going to turn things around and finish strong and maybe make a push to make the playoffs, I didn't agree with it. But wide receiver is a position of need. And you now have traded away Toney, who apparently is active now and healthy. Shocker. And we could really use him right now. Galladay, I don't even know what his timetable is. I guess they're just like, you know what? People are saying it's the hip injury that he had surgery on. It just hasn't fully healed. And I don't know that it will ever fully heal. So I just, woof, dude, woof. And now everyone has this, after the trade deadline comes and goes and we didn't make a move, everyone has this restored faith in Kenny Galladay to come back and be like a wide receiver 1. What makes you think that? What leads you to think that? They weren't making any kind of effort to get him the ball when he was on the field. He rarely saw the field, and when he was on the field, they weren't getting the ball. And when they did get him the ball, he either dropped it or they missed him. So now it's like he's going to come back and be our savior. Listen, would be a hell of a story. Would be a great story. And it's a nice to see story. I'm not betting on that. And now we're all going to push all our confidence in the Kenny Galladay. Okay, sure. So I would have loved either a wide receiver or a tight end. If we got both, I would have been feeling pretty good about the future of this season, because I care about this season. I understand. Okay. If we were in the same boat as we were with the Leonard Williams trade, where it's like we're 2-5, 3-4, even 4-4. I think it's great that we're 3-4, 4-4, 2-5. Like we're on pace to beat last year's season win total. Great, but I don't think we need to make any kind of move. I'm not even asking for a splashy move, dude. Just a move or 2, just to because listen. What they've been able to do with this roster is stellar. Outstanding, incredible, unpredictable. No one saw this coming. They've squeezed everything they can of this roster, but it's starting to catch up with them. So why not bolster the roster where you need to? Because I understand the goal is long-term winning and long-term. I just don't know that you want to look too much into the future here. It's such a great opportunity to take advantage of what's going on. And the schedule is only going to get tougher, and that's why it sort of feels like we're punting on the season. That's the feeling I get. Look at these teams making moves, and you could say that these teams, these teams are making David Gettleman moves where they're desperate and they want to save their job and they're making transactions that they probably shouldn't. I understand all that. The Dolphins, okay, in the same division as the Bills, who everyone is already handed them the Lombardi trophy. The freaking Dolphins are making moves, dude, because they want to compete with the Bills, and they don't want to just sit on their hands and be okay, well, let's just hand the division and the conference to the Bills. No, they're making moves, acquiring Bradley Chubb from the Broncos for Chase Edmonds and a bunch of picks, acquiring Jeff Wilson from the Niners to fill the void left by Chase Edmonds. They felt like they needed a better pass rush and to shore up the defense. They went out and did it. Did they completely mortgage their future? I don't think so. And Chubb's a young pass rusher. The Steelers picking up William Jackson III, but dealing Chase Claypool. Kind of weird. The Bears, who are feel like they have some kind of renewed sense of purpose this season, feel like they've got something cooking, even if they got smashed by the Cowboys on Sunday. They pick up Roquan Smith, or they deal Roquan Smith, pick up Chase Claypool. The Falcons acquiring Calvin Ridley or sending Calvin Ridley to the Jaguars and Dean Marlowe to the Bills, but yet picking up Rashad Fenton, DB. The Colts, who are sellers, so they end up getting Zach Moss for Nyheim Hines in draft picks. So it's just, the Bills are not satisfied. The Bills making moves. Why are the Chiefs trading for Kadarius Toney? These are teams that are in win now mode. They feel like they have the sense that this is their year and they just need a player or two. And that was the other line of thinking or dialogue from a lot of fans was well, one or two players is not going to make us Super Bowl contenders this year. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? How do you know that a player's contributions are not going to? Did anyone think that David frickin' Tyree was going to be a contributor in our Super Bowl run? If he's not on the roster, we don't win the Super Bowl. What the fuck, dude? But I know that the players that we have on the offensive side of the ball in that wide receiver room are not making a difference. They're just not. That's what is so deeply upsetting to me. The big one that I didn't understand is TJ Hawkinson. Okay. Why not make a move for him? Why not? Bellinger's out. You have Tanner Hudson, some dude named Cager, and Andre Miller as your tight ends. Woof, dude. Fucking woof. You pick up Hawkinson. He's a young dude. He's got you get him for another 4 years. That's your tight end. One. And then you have Bellinger as your tight end 2. That's a pretty good tight end room. And it's not going to cost you a fortune. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Shane's explanation was don't shop hungry. And I get it. I've shopped hungry and it is a disaster. You end up with a $300 grocery bill. And then, a whole lot of package to go with it around the midsection. Build to the draft. Okay. You need 11 picks to rebuild this team? Okay, cool. And you want to be able to sign Barkley and Jones. I get it. I don't think Hawkinson's that expensive. I guess right now he is the number 1 tight end in the NFL, right? Behind Travis Kelce, maybe, and some others. But above average tight end. I don't think he cost that much. I just don't know why you wouldn't make a harder push for that. My proposals are simple. The Lions and Panthers and maybe the Jaguars. Who else is a seller in the AFC? Because it's Lions, Panthers, and NFC. Texans, Steelers, Jaguars, Raiders, maybe are your sellers in the AFC. So I did some looking. There are 2 wide receivers in the Lions that I think you could bring them in and they would contribute more so than the crew that we got that we're rolling out there right now. Khalif Raymond. He's 28 years old. In the last 4 games, 5 targets, 7 targets, 6 targets, 4 targets, 3 to 5 catches per game, anywhere from 40 to 80 yards receiving. You're telling me you wouldn't sign up for that right now? If you could get those numbers over the next 4 games, you wouldn't sign up for it? For like a fucking 5th round pick? 3rd round pick? You wouldn't sign up for that right now? That's the difference. Like everyone wants we can't afford a wide receiver 1, splashy wide receiver 1. It doesn't have to be a wide receiver 1 that you're tossing at 10 targets to. You get this guy 5 targets, half the load. He's going to give you 40 to 50 yards, which is more than anyone has been able to give us in that wide receiver room outside of Robinson and Slayton. Am I wrong? Josh Reynolds, 27 years old. He had 10 targets against Minnesota, 8 targets against Seattle, and then 10 targets against the Patriots, 6 to 7 catches in that 3-game stretch. I mean, he's fallen off a cliff since then. But is David Sills giving you that? Is Richie James giving you that? Is Marcus Johnson giving you that? No. I would sign up for that right now. We don't even have to throw you the ball 10 times. We just want to throw you the ball 5 times. And you can come up with 40 yards of receiving. I mean, I'm not asking for a lot. I'm not asking for the world here. Laviska Shenault Jr. He's on the Panthers. Okay. You look at his stat line, he's only played in 4 games this year. Not great numbers, but 6 targets, 5 catches, 26 yards against the Falcons. I don't know, dude. Jamal Agnew, wide receiver from the Jaguars, who now have Ridley, Kirk, the Joneses. They got all kinds of receivers in that wide receiver room. They're overfloweth with receivers. Now, this guy, Jamal Agnew, averages like 1 target a game. He did have 6 targets and 4 catches for 50 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Eagles. So it's like, that's a little bit of that's promise right there. Not only that, he was an all-pro punt returner with the Lions in 2017, and he's a dynamite kick returner. We kind of need a punt returner and kick returner right now. That couldn't have been a move. So I don't know that there's all, like everyone's talking about, we only pay attention to like the high stakes moves that are going to draw a lot of headlines. I think there were some mid-level moves to make that would make the offense better. Not a crazy amount better, but I don't think we're looking for a crazy amount better. I think we're looking for just something. But whatever, dude. I know in Dable and Shane we trust, but geez, man, nothing. Okay, cool. I mean, that's I guess the cap. It's the cap. I guess it has to be the cap that's so screwed right now that we're barely able to field the team that we are now. Sad. So that's the NFL trade deadline talk. Let's I guess we'll talk about the unfortunate loss, the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle against our former Giant Geno Smith, going up against just an absolute stud in Kenneth Walker, and apparently one of the top draft classes of this year. Those rookies, especially on the offensive line, are just they are putting up and they are shutting up the haters because they did a phenomenal job. So last week we talked about, we think this is going to be a run heavy game because both run defenses are porous at best. And they showed up in this game, both of them. I think Barkley was held to something like 53 yards on 20 carries. Did have the 1 touchdown. Daniel Jones was pretty much bottled up. Wasn't able to make any kind of moves, whether designed or scrambling. And it turned into a game of turnovers, mistakes, and capitalizing on those mistakes. Total yardage was fairly similar. Passing yards was fairly similar. I think Seattle had the edge in those 2 categories, as they did in the rushing yard category, but not like a huge discrepancy. They did average 1 more yard per play than us. But ultimately, in my head, and I think a lot of fans would agree, came down to 2 fumbles by Richie James. 1 fumble sets up the field goal, another fumble sets up the touchdown. And yeah, sure, if he fields those, maybe it saves us 10 points. But then again, we got, the tutty off the amazing strip by Adoree Jackson deep in Seattle territory, thanks to the Scottish Hammer, Jamie Gillen, doing his job and pinning them deep, which has been one of the major knocks on him thus far in the season. Was like, we need to start pinning guys back inside the 10 and inside the 20, inside the 10, inside the 5 would be great. So could you do that? Great. And so he was able to do that. So, okay, you take away the 7 points from our turnover ticket, there are 10 points. You're still looking at a game that's 17-6, We did allow 5 sacks, which I think is in line with expectations considering we were without Ben Bredesen, we were without Evan Neal. Josh Azudu still has, even though he looked impressive in Bredesen's relief last week, still not really up to snuff where we want him to be. Tyree Phillips, serviceable against the Jaguars, maybe not so much against the Seahawks, who brought the frickin' thunder. We still converted more third downs than Seattle, 6 of 16 versus their 3 of 13. And we dominated time of possession, 33 minutes. I mean, there was a period in the third quarter where, the quarter's 15 minutes long. I think we had the ball for 10 plus minutes, maybe 12 in the third quarter. But it was the penalties that really killed us in the turnovers, which is something that we've had in check for pretty much every game, especially every win. But 0 for 1 on fourth down. Seattle was 2 for 2. They had 19 first downs. We had 14. Jones, not a great day. 17 of 31, 176. No touchdowns, no interceptions. And I think he fumbled once. And then, Slayton, 5 catches, 66 yards on 6 targets. That's exactly where we would like him to be. Exactly where you need to be. But so then guess who's next in targets for this game? Marcus Johnson was 6 targets, just as much as Darius Slayton. He had 1 catch for 3 yards, and he led the wide receivers in snaps. Get him off the field. No more. And this is what I'm talking about. Why is he leading the team in snaps? Why is he leading the team in targets? This guy was not on a roster. We picked him up. Why? You don't think there's someone else out there that can fill in for Marcus Johnson and do better? If you don't think that, you're wrong. Wan'Dale Robinson, 3 targets. That's inexcusable. Why is he not getting 5, 6 targets? Or more. That just, it's one or two things for me. And I haven't watched the All 22 or any of that nonsense, but I would think maybe Seattle's doing everything in their power to take him away. They know he's strictly an underneath, close to line of scrimmage type target. And so they're pressing and not allowing him to get separation off the line. Okay. He's a small dude. Maybe that's the case, but why are we not motioning him? Why are we not doing jet sweeps, the shovel pass, all those things that can, create space for him and get him separation. Saquon had 5 targets, 3 catches, 9 yards. That's just a horrible job by Kafka. Tanner Hudson, 5 targets, 3 catches, 15 yards. He had more snaps than Chris Myrick, and he got absolutely truck sticked on the sideline that one play. Why are we throwing the ball to Tanner Hudson 5 times? Why are we throwing to Marcus Johnson 6 times? This is why we're staring down the barrel of a very rough second half of the season, if that's the case. If you're seeing box scores and summaries like that, I don't see many W's. I just don't. You give TJ Hawkinson 5 targets. You give Khalif Raymond, Josh Reynolds, Jamal Agnew 6 targets. We've seen what they've done with 6 targets. So that's my point is, no, we're not going to get a guy that you're going to feed the ball 10 times, 12 times a game. But I think if you were to give them the similar targets than the people that we have on the roster, they're going to do more with it, or they're going to do better. And that could be the difference. Not asking for much. Richie James only had 4 snaps on offense, and then he had the 2 fumbles. So you got to think that he's in the doghouse at the very least, and possibly on the outs. 5 of 11 drives, offensive drives, ended in 3 and outs. And you're telling me that that's not a byproduct of the lack of weaponry, the fact that they're like, hey, this offense runs through Barkley and Jones, and they don't really have a valid third weapon. Now you could say Slayton, you could say Wan'Dale, but it's like in terms of linebacking crew, hey, you have 2 keys. Barkley and Jones. And then in terms of the secondary, hey, it's either Robinson or Slayton. Those are the 2 that are going to kill us. None of these other guys are going to kill us. And so that was the Seattle game plan, and they crushed it, executed well. Now there were, to me, you could point to the penalties. You had that stupid penalty blindside block that negated a Richie James big return. Or it might have been Gary Brightwell. I think it was Richie James. Negated that, would have put us in great prime territory to at least get 3. And you had a few other penalties that are just like ticky-tack type stuff that either prolonged a drive or negated something special on defense. So, but there were 3 drives, Giants drives in particular, that I want to point out. Drive number 7 was at the beginning of the second half. We started at our own 8. Thanks, Gary Brightwell. And we went 14 plays, 79 yards, and it took almost 9 minutes off the clock.
We kicked a field goal.
That is how you lose games. The very next drive, it was started with 2 minutes and 42 seconds left in the third quarter. Started at our 28, 12 plays, 45 yards. Field goal. 6 minutes, 25 seconds off the clock. Can't do it, dude. The 10th drive, this is when I believe this is after Seattle went up 27-13. It was when Kenneth Walker had that ridiculous run to put him up 2 scores. We get the ball. Now there's less than 5 minutes left. Odds are, the odds probabilities of us coming back and winning are shrinking. I get it. We started our 25. We went 9 plays, 46 yards, 2 minutes, 50 seconds, and we turned it over on downs. I tweeted this out, and I'm going to stand by this. I think this was Mike Kafka's worst play calling game of the season, but it's kind of hard to blame him because of who you have. Like, once they take away Barkley, once they've figured out Jones, and once they've taken care of Slayton and Robinson, who do you have? Who's going to beat them? And their pressure, they dialed up some great pressure. They look like the Seahawks defenses of old, to be honest, the Legion of Boom. But some examples of Kafka's kind of subpar play calling. QB draw on 1st and 10. We're down by two scores, and you think a QB draw with Jones for like 3 or 4 yards, that's going to move the needle? What's going on? And I get it. You want to avoid 3rd and long situations, even though we actually do our best in 3rd and long. Like, we usually convert on 3rd and long. I just don't understand that call. It doesn't exactly inspire like this is how the comeback starts. That's like, oh, we're giving up. QB draw? What? And then 2nd and 1. With an opportunity to pick up an easy first down to extend the drive and at least get some momentum going, you pass and you get income, and then you get sacked, and it's now 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. Like, just dumb. It's not smart. Leonard Williams led the team with 5 QB hits. He had 5 solo tackles, 3 assists, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Timon Fox had a big game, undrafted free agent, 6 solos, 2 assists, 2 tackles for loss. Xavier McKinney had the big sack coming off the front side. Gino didn't see him. He was unblocked. Put a pretty nice hit. Laid the lumber on Geno Smith. But I got to say this. So if people were praising Fabian Moreau, I mean, Adoree Jackson had an amazing game, even though he did get beat on the double move by Lockett for the go-ahead score. And he did get fooled by DK Metcalf on the Kenneth Walker rushing touchdown. He still had a hell of a game, in my opinion. If only everyone else played like him. I know people were praising Fabian Moreau towards the beginning of the game, and I agree. I thought he was playing well, but eventually I think DK Metcalf proved too much for him. Also, how the hell were DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett playing? And playing at full steam ahead as if nothing had happened. They were talking about DK Metcalf like possibly needing surgery days before. And Lockett was questionable with something going on. And they both played and they both looked like top of their game. Metcalf had like 10 or so targets or something like that. 10 targets, 6 catches, 55 yards and a touchdown. Lockett 8 targets, 5 catches, 63 yards and a touchdown. Marquise Goodwin also 5 targets, 4 catches, 33 yards. You tell me we can't find a friggin' Marquise Goodwin. You tell me we can't find someone like that? Okay. But here's what the note is. The 2 notes from the defensive side of the ball, or 3, I guess, for me. I know people like Kayvon Thibodeau, and I understand he's a rookie, but I kind of feel like we need more from him. Don't you? He had 1 quarterback hit against the Seahawks. And as far as from what I'm looking at, and NFL.com, their box scores are never right, which is insane to me that you can have such inaccurate box scores and summaries. But I think he was left off the box score. Kayvon Thibodeau, 0 tackles, 1 quarterback hit. Dude, I know people are saying that he's getting held on every play, but you can, we've recently learned now that you can legally hold, and it's basically on a rip move. There's some move that a defender can do where the lineman can just straight up hold you. And my gut says that's exactly what's happening with Kayvon every single time. He's doing this move that allows the offensive lineman to hold him, and the refs are not going to call it. But yet he is expecting a flag almost every time he's doing it and looking for a flag, and he's not getting it. Things have got to change. We need him putting up numbers, maybe not to the same level of Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, but we need something. There's so many games that we can say like, oh, well, he didn't show up. He's not going to show up in the box score, but his contributions are, no, I'm just that, you know what that sounds like? That sounds exactly what was happening with Leonard Williams, where it was like, okay, he's not showing up in the box score, but if you watch the game, he's doing these little things that it's like, all right, I'm going to need you to show up in the box score. Like, I'm going to need you to get sacks, pressures, hits. I'm going to need that from you. I need it. We can't keep going along with this, pressures. Thibodeau had 2 pressures. QB knockdowns. Thibodeau had 1 QB knockdown. He had 1 hurry. Leonard Williams had 4 quarterback knockdowns. He had 6 pressures. That's, I don't know that KT needs to be on that level just yet, but let's get a little bit closer to that. Let's not have so much disparity between those 2 numbers. I don't know, dude. I don't think it's that unjustified for me to want that. Like, everyone's very high on him. He's got great personality. We all love him. But like, you got to start producing like box score numbers. Like, Tate Crowder had his lowest snap count of the season, 22, played 34% of the defensive snaps. He was outsnapped by Micah McFadden. And like, people are going to read into that and say, oh, well, Crowder's on their way out. It might be as simple as the coaching staff felt like McFadden gave him the better shot in coverage or stopping the run. Felt like he's a better run stopper. Hard to tell. I'm not reading a ton into it. It could very much flip the next game against the Texans. And then I was sad to see no Landon Collins, to be honest. He had 7 snaps on defense, and maybe that's the case of like, well, he's really just a specialty linebacker type situation. Cause I think from what I saw in the game at Jacksonville, and I don't know if I saw it too much in the game against Seattle, was he was spying the hell out of the running back. It was usually like a definite passing down situation. And you could see it as soon as the ball snapped, he is just like locked and loaded on that running back. So maybe that was the similar case here. I'd still like to see him get more snaps, only 11% of snaps. Would like to see him get to that kind of 15%, 20%. That'd be nice. I think that would make me feel better about how we're using him and stuff like that. Those are my notes on defense. Gano was great as usual. Gillen showed up, almost had a third. He had 2 inside the 20 with a long of 69. I mean, the guy is underrated and undervalued by a lot of Giants fans. I think Giants fans, we appreciate and acknowledge Graham Gano. We almost take him for granted a lot of time. We're like, all right, here's 3 points. It's like, this is a 52-yard field goal. This is like not automatic, even for Justin Tucker. But I think there need to be some flowers. I hate saying that, but give some flowers to Jamie Gillen. He's getting better at pinning opponents. And there was one point where we're kind of deep in our territory. And it's like, if he shanks this, or if he decides like, I'm just going to hang this as high as possible, like, you're looking at the Seahawks getting the ball like close to our territory. And instead, he launches the thing to the moon and he flips the field. It's so crucial and critical. That is the reason we scored our first touchdown. Pin him at the 2, and then Adoree comes up with the strip. Who knows if we score that touchdown, if we get that ball at the 30 or the 20. I don't know that we're going to score because our offense just was like struggling big time. I know Brightwell had that big return against, Carolina. I don't know if I want him as our kick returner anymore. There are too many times where he's taken and there was a graphic, I forget where I found it, but there's a graphic of like how many teams, when they take it out of the end zone, make it to the 25. And it's like maybe 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 are reaching the 25 or beyond when they take it out of the end zone. He's got to learn, like, if it's going to the end zone and it's going to like just let it go. Let's just get to the 25. Because I don't know that. I don't know. It's tough to swallow seeing Geno Smith just be such an effective quarterback, making perfect throws. I mean, the double move to Lockett, right on the money. Even that other deep throw to Lockett that Lockett dropped. I mean, that's not on Geno. It was right in his hands. And it's kind of funny to me that I wrote an article, I forget for who. Might have been G-Man HQ, might have been, I can't remember. NFL Spin Zone. But when the Giants initially signed Geno Smith, I was like, he has the potential to be the next Kerry Collins. And, Kerry Collins, very highly lauded, coming out of college, rookie quarterback with a lot of expectations, didn't necessarily live up to the expectations and fell out of favor and with his the team that drafted him, went to another team, got a second chance at life. He got a second chance to start and redeem himself and would excel. And I thought that could be the case with Geno Smith with the Giants because Eli was kind of on the decline. He hadn't shown much in that 2017 season. Not that a lot of it was his fault. I mean, a crappy offensive line and no receivers will do that to you. And you can see that's what kind of happened with Daniel Jones in this game. It's like, I don't have an offensive line and I don't have any receivers. So I compared Geno Smith I was like, Geno Smith could be Kerry Collins 2.0 for the Giants, in being that stopgap between generational franchise quarterbacks. He didn't come in to start initially. He just came in as a backup that they were going to coach up, and they thought that he could be a starter. And that's what happened with Kerry Collins. And I felt like that could have happened with Geno Smith. Do I think that he was the next franchise quarterback for the Giants? No. But Kerry Collins in his 4 years here, not bad. Super Bowl appearance, I'll take that. Another playoff appearance, I'll take that. While you try and find the Eli Manning, right? That next big quarterback, I just felt like Geno might have been the fit there. And of course, he gets to start he ends Eli's consecutive starts streak and plays so poorly against the Raiders. That's like, okay, never mind. Because at least when Kerry Collins would come in 99 to relieve, I think it was like Kent Graham, something like that. It's like at least he put up some good numbers, and gave us chances to win. But this is, I would want to see, I'm actually happy for Geno to a certain extent because I like when people that are written off come back with a vengeance and are able to show their value and demonstrate that they are capable. We put so much pressure on a lot of these quarterbacks to succeed right out the gate, and we write them off if they don't do it in a rookie year. It's like, holy crap. People are willing to give up on Trevor Lawrence already. It's like, what? Okay. For every Mahomes that comes hot out the gate, you're going to have a dozen guys that don't do that and then get buried and aren't given a second chance. Like I look at Marcus Mariota, lost his job in Tennessee. I think he went to Vegas, backed up there. Now he's in Atlanta, and now he could have that team poised for a playoff run. As much as I hated the post-game press conference and everything that he said after, like thanking Ben McAdoo and Jerry Reese for the opportunity, it's like, ugh. And a lot of what they said just made you think, as of right now, if you look at the playoff picture, like we would face them. We're the 6th seed to the 3 seed. We would then go to Seattle. And I got to tell you, I would freaking love that rematch. I would love it to go into Seattle and take them down after they beat us in the regular season. That is the story that I'm all about, that I'm here for. And, my concern going into this game was Kenneth Walker, and he didn't do much. He put up similar to numbers to what Saquon Barkley put up, 18 carries, 51 yards. I don't know that's not that crazy. So I was like, in my worst nightmares, I was picturing him getting like 20 some odd carries, 100 and some odd yards, but 18 carries, 51 yards and a touch. And I think the bulk of those rushing yards came on that one touchdown run when it was from like 20 yards out or something like that, which Tate Crowder misses the tackle. Not that he dove and got a piece, but Xavier McKinney, I feel like he's got to make that tackle now. Said he kind of over pursues and then he gets twisted around, loses them. Mike Jackson, Jesus. I don't even think I included him in my preview last week, but he comes up with 3 passes defended, 7 solo tackles. Woof, freaking Michael Jackson. Ryan Neal, their safety, 6 solos, 2 tackles for loss. Uchenna Nwasu seems like a game wrecker. 5 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Cody Barton had a sack. Puna Ford, great name, had a sack and a tackle for loss. And then Bruce Irvin only had 1 solo, 1 assist, 1 tackle for loss. But it was just a nice little reminder that dude is legit, or was legit, when he basically crashed the Giants' backfield and pushed Daniel Jones into Saquon Barkley. It's like, oh boy, you are a one-man wrecking crew. But that was basically his only highlight. So looking at the playoff standings, looking at the playoff status, Eagles, they win again. It looks like they're going to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, right? Unless the Vikings with TJ Hawkinson. But so yeah, it's either Eagles or Vikings vying for number 1. And then you would have Seahawks 3, Falcons 4, which the Falcons should not have won that game. I'm actually just rewatching it on NFL Network now. And like the Panthers had it. And then DJ Moore, Giants trade target, catches a incredible throw by PJ Walker. Moore catches it for the touchdown. It's tied. All they have to do is kick the extra point and they win. And of course, DJ Moore removes his helmet and gets penalized 15 yards. They miss the extra point and they lose in overtime. So Panther's going to Panther, I guess is the expression, right? But the Falcons, it's games like that and having the ball bounce your way and the luck of something like that can really propel you, which is something the Bucs haven't had happen for them so far. So Falcons 4, Cowboys 5. I think that's going to stick. Giants are right now the 6th, and then the Niners have the 7th at 4-4. But then you have the Commanders at 4-4. I think the Rams are going to give people some problems, but I think they missed the playoffs. I honestly think the Bucs cannot turn it around. I think they're going to miss the playoffs. I don't think the Packers are going to turn around. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucs and Packers make late pushes to possibly get in the playoffs, but I think they just miss out. Cardinals are the Cardinals. I mean, the Saints are intriguing to me, really intriguing. I think if anyone makes a case to a run for the Falcons' money for that NFC South division title, it could be the Saints. Why? Great question. I feel like the defense is coming around. Feels like if they can ever figure out how to make Taysom Hill work with Andy Dalton and Alvin Kamara, I don't know. It just seems like they've got something, So I think I wouldn't be shocked if we end up getting the 7 seed and then have to go to Minnesota to play the Vikings. Ooh. Which, I mean, I don't know. Would you rather go to Minnesota and play the Vikings in the wild card, or would you rather go to Seattle and play the Seahawks? I guess we'll find out because we're gonna end up playing Minnesota later in the year, so that'll be a good litmus test, I guess, barometer of measuring stick of how we compete and compare with the Vikings. But I feel like now that we know what the Seahawks are, but Seattle's such a tough environment to play in, whereas Minnesota's like not as tough. So would you rather go to Minnesota and play in the Vikings? Very interesting. Strength of schedule, not great. If we're looking at, making a run and getting that postseason playoff berth, the strength of schedule is not exactly in our favor. The Commanders have the toughest schedule in the league heading down the stretch, and that's because they got us, the Cowboys and Eagles, and we all have really good records, so that makes sense. But I would not look past Taylor Haneke, man. That freaking dude, he's just, I know a lot of people are saying he's like a gunslinger, poor man's Brett Favre, but yeah, that doesn't mean you overlook him or look past him. I mean, he almost led, in 2020 when they won the division at 7-9 and they hosted the Buccaneers because they won the NFC East. They almost took down Tampa, and Tampa went on to win the Super Bowl. I never forget. I think with Carson Wentz, I like automatically dialed up W's for both of those Commanders games. Now it's not such a lock, in my opinion. Then we have the second toughest slate ahead, both in the division and in the conference, and then the 4th hardest in the league. And then right behind us is the Cowboys, with the 5th hardest schedule in the league and the 3rd toughest in the conference in the division. So I guess if you're a team like the Rams, the Bucks, the Packers, teams like that are kind of on the outside looking in right now, that's kind of what your hope is. Like the Packers have a fairly easy schedule heading down. I mean, I think they have the toughest of the NFC North, but I think I think the Packers, of all the teams on the outside looking in, might have, like the Bucks and Packers, I think they will come on strong in the second half of the season. I just don't think it'll be enough. So yeah, right now we have a 82% chance of making the playoffs. It went down from 90%. According to playoff status, we have a 29% chance of getting that 5th. Our best odds are getting that 5th playoff spot. But I just don't see it. I think the Cowboys are going to get it. And then our next highest probability is that 6th spot. But I honestly, given the current state of the team and the injuries are piling up, and I think they're going to be too much, to be honest. I think they've done an amazing job, astounding job of being able to make the most out of what they've been handed. Lemons, lemonade, that whole shtick. but I don't know that they can keep it up, especially with it's like continuing to get mounting injuries. But I do look forward to the day when we get everyone back. I think that's going to be such a great day when we have Nick Gates and Shane Lemieux and Kenny Galladay and so-and-so and so forth, Daniel Bellinger. That'll be a great day. And hopefully we're still in a position to make the playoffs when that happens. So I thought I would take a moment, since we don't have a game next week, since we do have a bye this week, to take a look at how we've done historically after the bye week. So the bye week was instituted in 1990. There were no byes before 1990. You had to go back to 1966, I think, or 65 when there were byes. And I didn't go back to that time. 66 or before, I didn't go back to it's just such a different time. It's like, I don't know, I know curses last forever. I get it. But so went back all the way to 1990 to look at our buys, similar to what I did with the historical hot starts. I thought it'd be cool to look at our record after the bye. Under Joe Judge's tenure, we were 1-1. We had the blowout loss at Tampa. That was excruciating in so many ways, especially how tough we played them in 2020. I thought that we would put up a similar performance in 21. Not happening. And it turns out, I mean, I think that was the game that Daniel Jones should not have even played because of his neck. Because wasn't it the week before we beat the Eagles? And that's when he suffered the neck injury, I think he suffered the neck injury in this game and then still played against Philadelphia and won. Holy crap, dude. Interesting that we have not heard anything more about his neck. I guess it's like fully healed. I don't know. 2020, we got the W over the Bengals, who were like, didn't have Joe Burrow and were banged up, and we beat them by 2, and it came down to the last drive. Defense had a huge stand. That was the Nico Lelos game. And then Pat Shurmur's tenure, two games after the bye, one in 2019. After week 12, we lost to the Bears 19-14. That came down to the last drive where we just came up short. Another knock against Daniel Jones, I guess, not being clutch, not being able to win close games and come from behind. He's kind of disproved that this year. 2018, we had a win after the week in week 10 after the bye. That was Eli was at the helm, and we won at San Francisco 27-23. That's when he threw that kind of out flat pattern to Sterling Shepard, who came down just in bounds. He had a game-winning catch. That was Pat Shurmur's tenure. So 1-1 with Pat. Ben McAdoo, we were 1-1, lost in week 9 in 2017. That was the loss that really was the end, beginning of the end, I guess, for Ben McAdoo. 51-17 to the Rams at MetLife Stadium. That was the death knell. And that's when players were giving up, literally giving up on the field. There are multiple clips of like Janoris Jenkins, Eli Apple, like multiple defenders just being like, fuck this noise. I am out. Cash the check. And then I put up my feet. Enjoy a little Dancing with the Stars. So that was Ben McAdoo's tenure. In 2016, there was a win in week 9. That was the win at home. I believe I was at that game. We beat the Eagles and Carson Wentz 28-23. That was Carson Wentz's rookie year. Came down the last drive. Defense made a huge stand, which was, that basically was like every game in 2016. It was just the defense coming up huge at the end of games, which didn't happen in 2015. But it appears to be happening in 2022, sort of. Yes, definitely. So that's why the comparisons are tough, because it's like you have ex-players like Jonathan Casillas saying like, we were winning in 2016, but McAdoo had zero control over the clubhouse. So it's like you're hoping and praying that that's not the case with 22 Giants, where Daboll has his ducks in a row, has everyone in lockstep, and is not overlooking things because of wins, which I don't think he would. But interesting to it's not exactly apples to apples there. So Coughlin was not too bad I think out of all the coaches we've had, other than Parcells, I guess, he had the best record when it came to games after the bye. He was 7-5 after the bye. Historically, and I'll get to the other records in a little bit, but he was 7-5. 2015, 2014 were both losses. At Washington, we lost 2014. That's when we were down 20-0. And then we had a late comeback, come up short. That was like that bonkers catch by Odell Beckham down the left sideline, where it was he dove one-handed and caught it. Almost as impressive, if not more impressive, than the catch in 2014 against the Cowboys. 2014 was a major big time loss in week 9 against the Colts, 40-24. And then there was 6 straight years of wins after the bye. 2012, we demolished Aaron Rodgers and the Packers 38-10 on Sunday Night Football. It's crazy how I've forgotten about that. I know it was 10 years ago. I know we didn't make the playoffs that year, but we were kind of a wagon, but not really. Like, I felt like we were poised. I think after that win, I mean, that's week 12. After that win, I think everyone was feeling pretty good about our chances. And then we got our doors blown off by the Ravens and I want to say the Bengals, or who else was it? There was some other team we just got trounced. I know one of them was the Ravens, and that was like, okay, yeah, we're not going to the playoffs. 2011, we won the Week 8 contest against the Dolphins after the bye. 2017, we scored 10 in the fourth quarter to pull that one out. 2010, we had a Week 9 win after the bye, crushing the Seahawks 41-7. That's another year, 2010, where it's like 2010 and 2012, we didn't make the playoffs, but fuck, it felt, there were games after games, some games where I was like, we're winning this goddamn thing. We're winning the whole thing. 2009, we had a win in week 11 after the bye in overtime over Atlanta, 34-31. 2008, we won our week 5 game after the bye against Seattle, crushed them 44-6. 2007 was a loss in week 10, 31-20. I think I went to that game. I had season tickets that year. We did not do well at home that year, which was interesting. It's like I had season tickets to their Super Bowl season and they didn't win at all. That was a tough one. I think that final score doesn't reflect how close it was or how intense it was, because I remember that being kind of a much closer than that final score would indicate. 2006, we won in week 5 after the bye, beat Washington 19-3, lost week 6 of 2005 after the bye to Dallas 16-13. Oof, hate that. 2004, we lost week 7. That was Coughlin's first year. We lost the week 7 game after the bye to Detroit 28-13. I think that was with Kurt Warner was still the quarterback, but I think he might have made the switch. I think he made the switch after week 8 to Eli. And then that's when the season went to shit. People forget. But it was necessary, right? So then we'd look at Fossil's tenure. Fossil frickin' stunk after the bye. I mean, like, all-time bad after the bye. 1-6. 1-6 after the bye. In 2003, we lost week 5 after the bye to Miami 23-10. That's when I believe it was the three-headed monster with Miami. Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown doing the Wildcat and all that. Was that 2003 or 2008? I probably have it mixed up. Lost in 2002 in week 8 after the bye to Philly 17-3. Lost to Dallas in 2001 after the bye in week 13, 20-13. Won against Philadelphia 24-7 in 2000, week 9. In 99, week 10, we lost after the bye to Indianapolis 27-19. Lost in week 9 of 98 to Washington 21-14. And then we lost in week 11 of 97 season after the bye at Tennessee, but they were the Oilers. Talking Steve McNair, Eddie George as the Tennessee Oilers. We lost 10-6. Yuck. Dan Reeves' tenure wasn't much better. He was 1-4 after the bye. In 96, he lost in week 7 after the bye to Philadelphia 19-10. We won in week 9 of 95 season at Washington 24-15. Lost at New Orleans in 94, week 5, 27-22. That would come back to hurt us, to bite us right in the patootie. 93, we had 2 bye weeks. Can you imagine? I can't. I wouldn't be able to do that. I'm sure that the players might appreciate it, but like, I don't know. I don't like it. I think that was the only season that had 2 byes. So we lost both of them, by the way. We lost week 5 after the bye at Buffalo 17-14. God damn it. And then we lost week 9 after the bye to the Jets 10-6. God damn it. You win those 2 games, you don't have to worry about the last game of the season against Dallas, and then you have the number 1 seed and you host a game and you don't have to worry about going to friggin' San Francisco where we got smoked. So that was Dan Reeves. Ray Hanley lost both of them. Week 5, 92 season, we lost to Oakland 13-10. Ugh. And then week 9 of the 91 season, we lost to Washington 17-13 after the bye. Ray Handley, yikes. Couldn't figure it out. I mean, the Big Blue VCR, I talk about them all the time. They're posting clips from the 91-92 season. and where Bill Parcells is like the commentator. So they're like peppering him with questions about, what do you think about this current Giants team? And it's like, he said, it's a lot of aging veterans. It's a lot of guys that are, came on in the mid to early 80s and are now like towards the end of their playing career, but still playing pretty good, at least on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, 13 points to Oakland, 17 points to Washington. It's not like we were getting our doors blown off, but I do think offensively it was challenging, because they had the whole QB controversy with Haas and Phil. So, and then Bill Parcells only bye week. He won, obviously, week 6 after a bye at Washington, 24-20. I think that was the Stephen Baker game where he caught a touchdown. He caught a short pass and took it to the house, 70 some odd yards, 80 yards. So yeah, it's our history of not great. So all told, we're 13-20 as a franchise after the bye. Coughlin obviously 7-5, Fossil 1-6, Reeves 1-4, Shermer, Judge, and McAdoo all 1-1, and then Big Tuna, Hanley 0-2, and then Big Tuna 1-0. So we'll see how Dable treats it. I know the bye. I said this on Twitter, like the bye comes at probably the best possible time for this team because they have so many freaking injuries. And it'd be nice just to rest guys and get them all back healthy for a very critical Houston Texans game, Sunday the 13th. I will be in Pullman, Washington that weekend, visiting a friend who I haven't seen probably since the wedding. My wedding that did not last. The wedding lasted, yes. The marriage not. So I haven't seen him in a while. I'm going to go out there, but maybe I'll be able to catch the game because it'll be on earlier. My flight's later. So maybe I'll be able to go to a bar and catch that, or I just have to record it and watch it when I get home. But I would say this: we have one. I have a feeling the postseason is going to come down to tiebreakers. Okay. And honestly, pop quiz hot shot. If someone said, "Hey, what are the divisional tiebreakers and what are the conference tiebreakers?" And if I told you there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tiebreakers, would you believe me? Probably not. And I'd say I'm confident in you guys. I have faith in you. I think you can get the first 3, maybe 5 tiebreakers correct. Because after you get past the first 3 or 5, it is mind numbing. So it's head to head. We all know that. Divisional record and conference record. Okay, got it. Common games. Okay. Then it's strength of victory, strength of schedule, points scored divided by points allowed, combined ranking conference team against conference teams, points scored versus points allowed, so point differential for all teams, points differential for common games, points differential for all games, touchdown differential all games, coin flip. Could you imagine? I would actually like to, I'm a fan of chaos sometimes. I'm an agent of chaos, if you will. It would be cool to see. It'd be super sweet to see everything be tied and it has to be a coin flip. Could you imagine? There's no way that there would be such an uproar. There's no way they would allow that to happen. People would petition and riot. You'd have people being like, nope, you can't do that. You have to play a wild card, like an extra wild card game between these two teams, like the MLB used to do. It's like you're both tied. All right, 1 game playoff. Let's go. I feel like they should do that. If all that else, I mean, the odds of this happening are like you're better shot of hitting the Powerball, which I just played $1.2 billion. No big deal. But a coin flip, you cannot determine a playoff berth on a coin flip, dude. It seems so wrong. But so yeah, with that in mind, knowing that divisional record is huge and conference record is big, and we're thinking about playoffs, this is where the remaining schedule. Let's take a look at the remaining schedule and just see like what the most important games. Obviously, divisional games are critical. I don't know that there's a whole lot pointing to us having too much success against the Cowboys or Eagles. They looked like freaking juggernauts. So I've kind of, you obviously as a fan, you want to win those games and maybe we could steal 1. I don't know that we're going to be able to steal 2. So our divisional record is not going to look great. Our divisional record is going to be like 2-4 if we can even sweep the Commanders. So I think that's, our remaining schedule. Like I said, it's like one of the toughest in the league. I mean, all 3 other NFC East teams are just, even the Commanders are going to be a thorn in our side. So that's why the Texans and the Colts are actually the least important other than overall record, right? So it's like you almost think if we have to lose games, let's just lose against the Texans and Colts and then win all the others, right? But yeah, we gotta pad the W column. That's for sure. So it's like these next two games, I don't want to say have to go 2-0, but man, that would go a long way if we could just beat the Texans and the Lions, because then we're set up. We're at 8-2, and we need to find 2 to 3 more wins among the remaining games. You got to think that the Colts should be a win. You would think. So there's one, and then you got to find one, and my guess is all likelihood Commanders. 1 or 2 games that we win. And so that's where my head's at is the Texans, I have a similar vibe as to when I did with the Jags. Luckily, we're playing this game at home. And so I think that's going to be huge for us, because I think if we play at Houston, it would have been another game like the Jaguars game, where it's like we're in enemy territory, unfamiliar surroundings, unfamiliar opponent, like not in our division. We don't play them very often. So it's a trap game for sure. Lions, you got to feel better about our chances after they got rid of TJ Hawkinson. That's a home game. So this is like these are our get right games, right? Go 2-0 there. If we go 2-0 there, we're 8-2 heading into the Thanksgiving game in Dallas against the Cowboys. Emotions are going to be an all-time high. Thanksgiving Day. Whoa. Afternoon game. That's our opportunity to show people that the Cowboys don't own us like they have for so long. And then we have the Commanders at home, Eagles at home. You'd like to get 1 or 2 wins out of that home stretch. And then at Commanders, at Minnesota, woof, home against the Colts, and then at Philadelphia, which that last game against Philadelphia, who knows? I mean, they could be like 16-0 and be like, we're gonna try and get the perfect regular season. They could be 15-1 or 14-2. At that point, it's like, let's just rest our guys. And then that could be an easy W. So with all that said, I have my updated record prediction, 11-6. I think if we can get the wins against the Texans and Lions, sweep the Commanders, and beat the Colts, that puts us at 11 wins. And, would be nice to steal one from the Eagles, and maybe that is that last game where they rest everyone. Or I'd love to get revenge on Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. That would be sweet. But realistically, just knowing how things have panned out and how each team has looked. I mean, Dallas's defense, Jesus Christ, dude. And even it's like they don't have Ezekiel Elliott. Well, Tony Pollard's better. Like what? So I don't think we're getting a lot of guys back in time for that Thanksgiving Day game. Maybe Evan Neal, and I think maybe that's the game plan here is like, let's try and use the bye to get healthy. I think that's why they didn't rush a lot of people back for Seattle, even though it's an important game. It's a conference game, not a division game. So it would be nice to get everyone back for that Cowboys game on Thanksgiving Day. And maybe that's the aim there, or at least for that. Let's try and get people back for that week 14 game against the Eagles at home. If you're aiming for the Cowboys game week 12 away, but if not, we really need to be at 100% for that week 14 game at home against the Eagles. So 11-6, that should do it, right? I think 10-7 could even do it. 9-8 feels like a coin flip situation. I don't know that we're going to be able to squeeze in at 9-8, given how the 49ers look super rejuvenated with Christian McCaffrey. Holy moly. And don't sleep on the freaking Commanders for some reason. Ugh. All right. So that's the New York Football Giants.